Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a topic that, honestly, most of us probably think about all wrong.
Oh, completely wrong.
Yeah. We're talking about self-defense. And I know the moment I say that, you're probably picturing karate chops or high kicks, or maybe that one time you watched an MMA fight and thought, I could totally do that.
Right, the classic ego trap.
Exactly. But the source material we have today completely flips that on its head. We're looking at this fascinating breakdown from the YouTube channel Jing Shen Kuoshu, featuring a seminar on senior self-defense.
It's a really compelling piece of material, and mostly because it features an instructor named Greg, and crucially, a student who is 75 years old.
Which changes everything.
It really does. Because what makes this so interesting for you, the learners listening out there, is that it strips away the vanity. This isn't about looking cool in an action movie.
No, not at all.
It's about mechanics, physics, and a very specific mindset.
And the hook here, the thing that really grabbed me right at the start, is this incredibly counterintuitive idea that self-defense and street fighting are not the same thing.
They are practically opposites.
Which, if I'm being honest, kind of blew my mind. I always just assumed they were two words for the exact same messy situation.
It's a critical distinction, and it's one that most people miss until it's entirely too late. They conflate the two. They think self-defense is just, fighting someone who attacked you.
Right.
But the source makes it very clear. Street fighting is often what they call mutual combat.
Okay, let's unpack that. Mutual combat. Because that sounds like a legal term you'd hear in a courtroom, not necessarily in a dojo.
That's because it actually is a legal term. The instructor is very blunt about this. He says street fighting is often just two people fighting for pride.
Just ego.
Pure ego. It's thinking you're tough. He actually just calls it stupid, and he's not wrong. The problem is if you engage in mutual combat, like if someone shoves you and you shove back, or they insult you and you take a swing.
You cross the line.
Exactly. Legally, you have very little protection at that point. You aren't a victim defending yourself anymore. You're just a participant in a brawl.
That is a huge shift in perspective. So real self-defense isn't about winning the fight. It's not about standing over the other guy like a champion.
No. The objective of self-defense, according to this entire seminar, is survival. It's disengagement.
Creating space.
Yes, creating space so you can escape. The instructor points out that in a real scenario, unlike a combat sport, you just don't know the variables.
You don't know if they have friends nearby.
Right. You don't know if they have friends around the corner. You don't know if they have a knife in their pocket. You don't know their level of aggression or if they're intoxicated. So the goal is to monitor and maintain a boundary so you never actually have to fight.
It's moving from an ego-based reaction to an intelligence-based response.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, is way harder than it sounds when your adrenaline is spiking.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why the training focuses on specific physical mechanics to override that fight instinct.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of those mechanics. The source walks through how to actually do this, and it starts with something they call the monitoring hand.
Yes.
Paint a picture for us. What does this look like? Are we talking fists up, ready to rumble?
Definitely not. If you put your fists up, you're signaling aggression. You're telling the other person, okay, we're doing this.
You're accepting the mutual combat.
Exactly. The monitoring hand is much more subtle. Think of it like a perimeter fence. You aren't standing with your fists up like a boxer. You're in a stance where one hand is forward, open, creating a physical barrier to keep the attacker out of your personal space.
So it's literally a physical do not disturb sign.
In a way, yeah. The source compares it to a Philly shell concept.
Boxing fans might recognize that one.
Right. It's a position where your structure protects you and allows for counter movement if things go south, but primarily it's there for security. It establishes a boundary without immediately escalating the conflict.
And there was a very specific detail about the elbow that seemed super important. The instructor kept coming back to it. The elbow rule, I guess we could call it.
This is pure biomechanics, and honestly, it's the secret sauce for that senior student. The rule is simple. Keep your elbow down and in.
Down and in. It sounds almost too simple.
It does, but it's the linchpin of the whole defense. If your elbow flares out like a chicken wing, or if your wrist drops below the level of your elbow, your structural integrity just collapses.
Why is that such a big deal, though? Does elbow position really determine whether I get knocked over or not?
It completely determines whether you can stop their forward momentum. The instructor calls an outside elbow, that chicken wing position, a grappler's dream.
A grappler's dream, meaning they can grab it?
Yes. If your elbow is out, an attacker can easily get under it, control your body, and take you down to the pavement. It essentially gives them a handle to control your entire center of gravity.
I see. So by keeping it at...
By keeping the elbow down and in and maintaining just a slight forward and upward pressure, you make it incredibly difficult for someone to crash into you. You're building a frame.
like a shelf bracket.
Perfect analogy. You're building a shelf bracket that supports your own weight against theirs. So even if they are much bigger and stronger, they end up pushing against your bone structure, not your muscle.
I love that. It's like structural engineering for your body. Now, the seminar moves into some common real-world scenarios. And this first one felt very familiar. The instructor talks about the setup.
Ah, yes, the distraction.
Right. Someone coming up to you, maybe
Yeah.
offering a free bracelet or asking for a donation. We've all seen this in tourist traps or busy cities.
They overload your brain with a question or an object just to close the distance before you realize you're in danger.
Exactly. And suddenly they grab you. The source breaks this down into 3 levels of grabs: low, mid, and high. Let's walk through these because the reactions they teach are surprisingly specific. Let's start with level 1. What happens if someone goes low, like trying to grab your leg or tackle you?
So this is level 1. The instinct, and this is what almost all untrained people do, is to lean over and swat their hands away. You know, get off me.
But the moment you lean over,
Or we drop your head.
right into their striking range.
Exactly. You drop your head, you bring your face right into danger, and you lose your posture entirely. So the technique here is to turn your body. You pivot, you maintain your level, you do not bow down to them.
Pivot, don't bow.
Right. You intercept their reach with that monitoring hand we talked about, but you don't compromise your upright posture. You keep the guard up while your hips and body turn away from the grab.
Okay, so that's a low grab. What about level 2? They come in for the body or the wrist, somewhere in the middle.
Here, the source introduces a movement called ton sao. Now, don't get hung up on the terminology, just focus on the shape of it. It's a circular motion. If the attacker drops their elbow in to grab your midsection or your wrist, you don't just push back.
It's because if I push and they push, the heavier, stronger person wins.
Every time. And remember, our student here is 75. He's not looking for a shoving match. So instead, he uses a circular movement to bring his arm around the outside of theirs and then back down into the attacker's body.
You're essentially redirecting their force.
You smother the arm by circling over it.
It's almost like you're just wiping their attack away. Like, nope, not today. And then level 3, the high grab. Someone reaching for your throat or your neck. This is the one that really triggers the panic response.
It is definitely the scary one. The response here relies on a movement called bansao. It's described as a rolling deflection. Imagine the attacker's arm coming straight toward your neck. You roll your arm over theirs, keeping your elbow in front of you.
The source used a great visual here. They called it the wing of the elbow.
Yes, you use the wing of the elbow to snap or parry the incoming arm. It's not a hard block where you just bang forearms bone on bone. It's a deflection that rolls their force away.
And again, the key is that elbow position, right?
Absolutely. It has to stay in front of your body to act as a shield. If your elbow gets pushed behind you, you literally have no shield.
So we've got these deflections. Low pivot, mid-circle, high roll. But then the source gets into what happens when you're actually tangled up, when space is gone. They call this the bridge.
Yes, the bridge.
And this is where it gets really interesting because they start talking about uprooting. And no, for the listeners, we aren't talking about guarding. What does uprooting mean in this context?
So the bridge is simply when contact is made. Your forearms or elbows are touching. You are now physically connected to the opponent. Uprooting is the art of disrupting their balance without needing to hit them with some wild knockout punch.
You're literally uprooting their connection to the ground.
Exactly. If they can't stand firmly, they can't hit you hard. It's that simple.
But how do you do that? Is it just shoving them really hard?
No, because shoving triggers resistance. If you push a person, their natural reflex is to push back. Uprooting relies on controlling what they call the V.
The V.
The defender aims to drive their elbows toward the attacker's armpit, that V shape between the arm and the torso.
Why the armpit? Is that like a magical off switch?
In a physical sense, yes. It's where human structure is incredibly vulnerable. By putting your elbows into their armpits and moving slightly forward, what the source calls driving, you lift their center of gravity just enough.
Ah, I see.
Think about it. If someone pushes your shoulders up and back, your weight instantly shifts to your heels. You're off balance. You aren't striking them, you're displacing them.
There was a massive warning here, though. a specific mistake to avoid when you're in close like that.
Right. Because if you stay in the mood, if you don't control those armpits and you just push on their chest or their arms,
attacker can spin you.
they can use your forward momentum to turn you entirely around and strike the back of your head. It's an incredibly dangerous place to be if you aren't controlling the V. So that armpit control is non-negotiable for your safety.
And once you have that control, once you've uprooted them a bit, the source mentions a specific lock, the gable grip. That sounds serious. Is this something difficult to pull off?
It's mechanically simple, but it is devastatingly powerful. In this scenario, the defender wraps their arm around the attacker's arm, or even their head if the situation calls for it, and hooks their thumb into the elbow.
Hooking the elbow to lock it in place.
That's a crucial detail. Then you bring it to your ear, and you clasp your hands together palm to palm.
Palm to palm. Not interlacing the fingers, because people always want to interlace their fingers.
Never interlace your fingers in a fight. If you interlace, you have 10 small bones that can be easily crushed if the person thrashes around. Palm to palm creates a solid, unbreakable block. That's the gable grip.
It creates a closed circuit of tension.
The source describes this as one of the most powerful locks available. It can straight up dislocate a shoulder or lead directly to a chokeout because the leverage is so immense. And you're doing this while tight against their body, so they can't even generate power to hit you.
It's intense how quickly this goes from just monitoring space to literally dislocating a shoulder if the threat escalates. It really shows the full range of this system. And speaking of escalation, we have to talk about segment 5. The source shifts gears from unarmed scuffles to weapons.
Knives and guns.
Yeah, and the tone really changes here. We're moving from painful to lethal. The stakes are obviously much, much higher.
Let's start with the knife defense. The core principle mentioned was make sure that blade is staying away, which sounds obvious, but how do you actually execute that without getting sliced up?
Right. The technique described is surprisingly fluid. If the attacker strikes, you don't just block the hand and stop moving.
You lift and control the hand holding the knife.
But here's the twist. Instead of trying to wrestle the knife away immediately, which is a contest of strength, you might very well lose, the instructor demonstrates guiding the blade back into the attacker's own body.
The invisible cut.
Yes. It sounds like a kung fu movie title, but it describes the mechanics perfectly.
It really does. It's using their own momentum and your control of their wrist to turn the weapon against them. You aren't fighting the knife directly, you're redirecting the hand holding it.
If they thrust forward, you guide that thrust past you and back into them. It's terrifyingly efficient.
Then there's the gun defense. And I think this part had the most visceral warning in the entire transcript. It actually made me wince a little just reading about it.
Absolutely. The instructor explicitly warns, never put your finger inside the trigger guard when trying to disarm someone.
Why? I feel like I see action heroes do that in movies all the time.
In movies, sure. In real life, if you put your finger in the guard and there's a struggle, if that gun twists or fires, the leverage of the metal guard against your finger bone, well, the instruction says the finger will get snapped off.
Okay, loud and clear. Note to self, keep fingers far away from the trigger guard. So what do you do instead?
You control the wrist and the meat of the hand holding the gun. The principle is called riding the energy. You pin the weapon hand and you move with it. The absolute #1 priority is ensuring the barrel never points at you.
You move your body around the gun rather than just trying to push the heavy metal object away.
It's almost like you're dancing with the weapon.
In a very terrifying way, yes. Once you have that control and you're off the line of fire, you use a wrist lock to turn the gun back toward the attacker. The torque forces them to release it, or at the very least, points the dangerous end back at them.
It's incredible how much of this comes back to leverage and redirection rather than brute force, which brings us perfectly back to the student in the video. We cannot forget him.
Yes. The 75-year-old student. I found his perspective so grounding throughout all this intense tactical talk. He's been training this system for 2 years, and he said it's entirely different from his previous martial arts experience.
He really is the perfect avatar for our learner listening right now. He knows he's 75. He knows he isn't going to step into an octagon and fight for a belt. He prefers this system because it focuses on defense and escape rather than aggression.
And he made a really astute observation about the difference between macro and micro movements.
Right. He said the moves look simple on the outside. That's the macro. Oh, just wave your arm around.
Yeah.
But to actually make them work, you need the micro.
Exactly. The minute movements. It's not just waving your arm. It's the exact angle of the elbow we talked about. It's the sensitivity to feel where the opponent's weight is shifting. And it's the footwork. He specifically mentions the swing step.
Talk to me about the swing step, because it sounds like a dance move.
It does sound like one, doesn't it? But it's a brilliant survival tactic.
Right.
When an attack comes down the center line, you don't just back up. Backing up might be faster than moving forward, but you can trip or run into a wall or a parked car.
So instead, you pivot.
You pivot. You move your head away from the line of attack while circling around the trouble.
Like a matador.
Exactly like a matador. You aren't stopping the charging bull with your chest. You're letting the bull go right past you while you move to a safe, dominant angle. You're effectively disappearing from the spot they are attacking.
And that really ties back to the whole philosophy of the seminar, doesn't it? Intelligence over ego.
It does. The student notes that while he's prepared to attack if he absolutely has to, the training develops the mind just as much as the body. It's about having the deep discipline to execute these micro-movements under extreme stress, rather than just flailing your arms.
It's about keeping your cool when the world is going totally chaotic.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've gone from the philosophy of avoiding mutual combat, avoiding that trap of fighting for pride, to the actual mechanics of the monitoring hand and the elbow rule.
And we broke down the levels of grabs, turning the body for the low leg grab, the circular tansa for the mid-body grab, and the rolling bansa for the neck.
Plus the concept of uprooting, using the bridge and the armpit control. Always remember the V and the terrifying but highly effective gable grip.
And finally, those life or death mechanics of weapon defense. Redirecting the knife, using their momentum, and riding the energy of a gun while keeping your fingers safe from that trigger guard.
It's a completely comprehensive system. But ultimately, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? Why should you care about uprooting or the swing step if you aren't planning on getting into a street fight anytime soon?
Because it completely shifts your mindset. The goal of this deep dive isn't to make you a fighter, it's to make you a survivor. It's about recognizing that winning in the real world just means getting home safely.
Getting home safely.
Right. It means understanding that engaging in mutual combat, whether that's a physical fight in a parking lot or a screaming match in your office, is usually a failure of strategy.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. It's about creating space in every sense of the word.
Exactly. The skills to physically create space are vital, but the wisdom to know when to create space is what actually saves your life. If you can avoid the ego trap entirely, you win before the fight even starts.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We talked a lot today about uprooting an opponent, physically disrupting their balance so they can't hurt you. But where else in your life do you need to practice uprooting?
That's interesting. Uprooting what, exactly?
Well, think about it. Where do you need to uproot your own urge to fight for pride? Where are you currently engaging in mutual combat? Maybe it's in a tense argument with your partner, or a toxic comment thread online just to prove you're right, when you really should be creating space, disengaging, and moving on.
Applying the swing step to your social interactions.
Exactly. Maybe the ultimate self-defense isn't just about protecting your body from an attacker. Maybe it's about protecting your peace of mind from your own ego.
That is the ultimate mastery right there.
Thanks for diving in with us today. Stay safe, keep those elbows in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.